Breaking news now, 11 members of the House have introduced articles of impeachment against Justice Department Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. The group led by Congressman Meadows and Jordan announcing the move shortly after a meeting with the Department of Justice today discussing stonewalling congressional document requests. Joining us tonight, one of the co-sponsors of those articles, Congressman Matt Gaetz. He serves on a number of committees, including Judiciary, Budget, Armed Services. Congressman, great to have you with us. My first question is, now there are articles of impeachment. What is the impact?
Well, Lou, Rod Rosenstein has withheld documents, withheld witnesses, improperly redacted documents. He told witnesses not to answer our questions, but I think the gravest sin of all is that Rod Rosenstein actually signed one of the FISA renewals on the flawed, dirty dossier information to spy on a member of the Trump campaign. So we've had enough. I'm tired of playing games and waiting around and setting deadlines and ignoring those deadlines. Rod Rosenstein has not done his job as the Deputy Attorney General. He has not managed the Mueller probe appropriately. He was derelict in his duty as it related to the FISA court, and it is time for him to be fired, removed, or impeached.
And earlier, Congressman Meadows, the chair of the Freedom Caucus, and moving on these articles of impeachment, had said he feared that the impeachment of Rosenstein would expire before Congress goes out on a long summer vacation tomorrow. What happens now?
Well, I didn't want the Congress to conclude this session and return for District Work Week in the absence of some action. I didn't want to have to go back to the voters in Northwest Florida and say, well, they ignored our document requests, they redacted information they weren't supposed to redact, they signed FISA warrants they weren't supposed to sign, and we're just going to have more meetings about it in Washington. So I think that it was very important for those of us who believe that norms have been violated to step out and say Rod Rosenstein needs to be impeached and that we take that position before the August work period. I don't believe that these will expire procedurally, but certainly we'll have to deal with the substance of putting on this trial and convincing our colleagues when we return. But the mountain of evidence against Rod Rosenstein is very compelling when you look at the extent to which documents and witnesses have been withheld.
I've got to ask you what you think of your speaker, your lame duck speaker, talking about tariffs won't work, they're not the way to get things done. He said, actually, I think tariffs or taxes are better tools we can use. The president has won a very big concession from the European Union. It looks like the EU and the United States are going to be partners in expanding that trade relationship. And at the same time, you've got a speaker who has introduced the idea of going out and campaigning for the quote-unquote better way agenda, his agenda that he's had up there on the Hill for years. This is a guy who couldn't win his hometown running as a vice presidential candidate, running as a congressional candidate. Why are you all listening to anything this guy says?
Well, Lou, look, I mean, the speaker, with all due respect to him, a guy I like, he does not understand leverage like Donald Trump does. I trust Donald Trump to negotiate these trade deals on a world stage. I'm glad that we're not using trade policy to achieve political outcomes in third world countries. Instead, we're putting America first. We're putting American workers first. And frankly, this is a time where we need the leadership to stand behind the institution of the House as we prepare to impeach Rod Rosenstein for not giving us the documents and not producing the witnesses. And when he does produce documents, they're redacted without any basis, without any nexus to national security. So we need leadership from our speaker. But when it comes to leverage, I'll take Donald Trump.